Hello and welcome to this episode of The Historical Fencer. Today we're going to talk about ranking and master titles and all of that. And by my side I have the absolute god master of historical fencing, Axel Pettersson.
Thank you for finally recognizing my legit title, Anders.
Yeah, I wasn't sarcastic or anything. All right, let's get going.
You are here on a matter of honor. I am here to assure you settle it honorably.
Junkritter Lehrer, Gottlieb haben, Frauen ja Herren, so explain.
I see you handle your weapon well.
I have been known to keep my tip up.
Morning.
Why don't you make it up like a couple of good fellows?
Don't expect these.
You ask for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man.
You ready, gentlemen?
All right, Axel. I have to start off this episode by apologizing to our listeners because it's been a while since we had any a podcast out or an episode out, and the reason for that is that we're so incredibly busy men.
That's right.
Yeah, and we simply did not have time for you. No, we were actually planning on doing this several times, and there was always something to get in the way. It was Christmas, it was illness, it was Christmas, and then illness again, and then a bunch of other stuff. So we never really got around to it, but now we're here.
Yeah, completely unforeseen things like Christmas ruin the schedule.
Yeah, I always threaten my kids that if they don't behave, I'll cancel Christmas, but they've sort of figured out that I don't have that power. Because my lovely other half always just gives me the eye, like, stop it.
Yeah. So now that you have groveled and apologized to the public, now you want to talk about mastery and hierarchies and ranking. Once they've lost all respect for us, you want them to.
Yeah. Okay. I want to apologize again for apologizing. Yeah, exactly. So but first off, how are you? Are you good?
I'm great. I almost feel bad saying this, but I fence like 3-4 times a week, and I almost have to apologize because I know many people can't do that.
Yeah,
given lockdown and whatnot, but it's been fantastic, really.
Yeah,
we have to have small groups. I think it's maximum 8 people. In Sweden now, right? But it's been working out just fine. So working on my skills, testing on prototypes, just enjoying the sword.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I haven't been fencing that much, but we did fence the other day, rapier.
We did for about 3 minutes before you gave up.
Oh, okay. So this is an outright lie. I shall quote Axel. He said, "I don't know what you've been eating, but you're beating me in rapier."
No, the actual quote was, "Well, it seems like our prototype equipment is really working because your fencing is improving."
It's actually, that's the correct one. I like my remembrance of the quote better, though.
Sure, your subjective experience is real to you.
It is. Okay, so I wanted to start off with ranking, and one of the maybe a foundation for our conversation about ranking and master titles and stuff like that is the historical setting for ranking. I don't know how familiar you guys are, listeners, and Axel, I guess, as well, about with the Sloan manuscript, which goes through the ranking system of the masters in London, which is a guild. Is a guild system. It's very similar to what we know about ranking systems in other guilds on the continent. But it seems to me, at least, that the reason for organizing, so a little bit of history about the ranking systems in history is that you have probably ranking systems which are based on the guild system, because guild system is how you organized historically.
Early modern times.
In the early modern times, yeah.
In
so that
other aspects of life, not fencing, right? So they copied it.
You had trade guilds, so it was a natural way of doing it. But if you go on later in history, like in the 1600s in Sweden, for example, there was, when they built the Riddarhuset, it's like the house of the knights in Stockholm, where the nobility could meet and vote on things and have their own little house. I actually read up on the history of that. It's pretty funny because they postponed it all the time because it was not just that the nobility didn't want to pay for it in the countryside because they were like, yeah, okay, so we've got a lot of noble people in Stockholm but I live in Skövde and I'm not really interested in paying for that. So that was one thing. And of course, like the merchants and the peasants were even less interested in it, and you had representation of the peasantry and of the church and of the bourgeoisie and nobility in the parliament in Sweden. So the peasants weren't really into that. But the interesting thing about ranking is that when that's the first time that I've read about in Sweden about organization of fencing masters. And they're going to, they've made a change by that time. So instead of organizing things in guilds, which we don't have any record of, to my knowledge, in Sweden, they have it more like an academy. So they're copying the university system, and that means that they want to hire various masters for the nobility to teach them the skills that they are required to know when they're becoming diplomats and so on and traveling in Europe. And that is a dancing master, a language master, a riding master, and a fencing master. I don't remember exactly which masters it is, but that's what they wanted funding for, beyond just building the house for them. I don't know if they actually got it, if there was a fencing master attached to Riddarhuset at that time, but I know that later on in the 18th century you had fencing masters hired by the universities.
I think even earlier too. Wasn't there a Spanish guy in the University of Lund? He wrote a manuscript that was like a rip-off of continental fencing to some extent.
You're not talking about Didrik von Porat?
No, not
the first
von,
one.
no, not
1698.
Yeah, not von Porat, because he was in Uppsala, I think, or Stockholm. But there was a guy in Lund who was Spanish, I think.
Okay, yeah. I have, when you say it, I have a vague memory of it. But I think there's still a fencing master in
Uppsala. The title has remained. But they do modern fencing now. And one of my main missions is to one day go there and challenge him for the title.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
bring a long sword to a foil fight.
That'd be fun. But so that's a shift in how you handle the education of fencers, and I know that the fencing masters tied in with the universities. They got their pay and lodging paid for by the university, and then they had to accept all students, but they could also do private tuition, I think. So that's as an extra income. But there's definitely a shift from the guild system to sort of academies and more copying the universities. Maybe when I'm thinking about it, it's also, there's a shift in how you in the terminology, right? So the art of fencing to the science of defense and science of fencing during this period. I'm not really sure if they're trying to fit into their new habitat in the academic world.
I suppose we're scientific guys. Look, here is a fencing guy with some.
No, it's science. I rammed my rapier right through this guy
at a perfect angle.
Yeah. What was it? It was like the stars were aligned correctly, and so was my sword right through his head.
Well, I mean, this enthusiasm for combining fencing with science language goes back a long time to what do we have? The last guy in the Bolognese system. There goes from like 17 guards to 4. What's his name? I just forgot because of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, already then, like 15th century, 16th century, you start seeing that. How they just throw in math into the fencing pictures and fencing language to sound really important, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we're probably insulting some guys who are going like, what?
Oh, I mean, it's all great and all, but you don't need a calculator to fight.
No, it's true. So anyway, from my personal sort of viewpoint on this is that I really like the guild system. And the reason I like the guild system is that it has sort of a beginning, a middle, and an end, which follows life in general. So you're starting off and you're an apprentice, and then you learn more and you become a journeyman and you travel, and then when you've learned enough and you're in your own right, your mission is to teach others. And then at the end, when you're a respectable person or whatever, you're an altenar and an older man. There's sort of a place for everything. It's not just a master hired by a university teaching people for a fee. And of course it's probably mixed up. Like it's not cut and dry different things, but there's definitely that sort of change in how it's done. But I like the guild system because it sort of feels more, it's hierarchical, of course, but it feels very organic and tied in with life. You're born, you're young, you're an adult, and you get older.
Yeah, I agree with that. Something that's interesting to think about is that when you're talking about ranking and so on, the guild system has been tested in other environments because the idea come from trade guilds.
Yeah.
So that was actually really effective in producing quality and stability for the guild members, right? They had a lot of benefits to them. And they still use the guild system in many places today in different crafts, right? Especially in Central Europe. So we know that the idea of a guild can yield some really positive results.
Yeah.
You're just making up your own ranking system or just doing colored belts doesn't really have that same connection into the non-fencing world, right?
No.
So there's evidence, you can say, for the quality of the guild system as such.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are even indications that it goes back, at least has some roots in the Roman sort of trade guild version of it. Can't remember the name of those at the moment, but I know that there are theories that they go back that far. Of course, changing over time and all of that, but still. So anyway, maybe we could talk a little bit about what the difference is, because there are differences between reconstructing a martial art and being part of a living tradition. It's not the same when you're ranking within a modern context and the historical context.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things is the reconstruction part, I guess. How does okay, maybe I should start with saying this. We do actually have a ranking system which follows the guild system. So we're sort of, talking about something that we believe in and that we've set up. And one of the parameters for doing that was a long discussion with various people regarding how we incorporate the parts which weren't historically taught. Like there was no need for you to read other historical masters in back in the day. There was no requirement necessarily for you to prove your techniques in a competitive environment. So there's a difference there because we are recreating them. So do you want me to go through how our system works?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So it's based off of the Sloan system in a way, and you start off with being just a noob. You don't really have any marks or symbols of your rank, and then you become when you're picked up by the guild, you've learned the basics. You become an apprentice, and then you become a journeyman, and then you become a provost or a master journeyman, which isn't a master, and then you can become an altenherr and an alderman. And in order for you to rank to the higher levels, you also need something which is based off an idea by Scott Brown, which is a merit system. And his idea was that you would get like a badge, like in the Boy Scouts, if you pulled off a historical technique in a tournament. So the merit system is sort of parallel to the ranks. And in order to go up to certain ranks, you need to get certain merits. And they have 3 tinctures. They're like bronze, silver, and gold. And there are 3 types of merits in our system, which is the laurel for competitive achievements, the feather for academic achievements, and the crown for teaching achievements. And so for the bronze laurel, you need to pull off basic, like 5 basic techniques in a non-club tournament. It doesn't have to be a very special tournament, but it shouldn't be just you and your club mates. And it could be basic techniques. So basically landing the basic cuts or something like that, or a thrust, or in a clean way. That would warrant you to get the bronze laurel. For the silver one, you have to do more advanced techniques. So maybe a deplieren, a mutieren, or doing a provoker, taker, hitter, something to that effect successfully documented, And then the gold laurel is for the elite achievement, so that you've won international tournaments for a longer period of time. So it doesn't really play into how you rank. It's just a merit showing off that you've got the gold laurel. It's a pretty impressive thing to have. For the feather, then it's the same thing. Like, you've published an article that's a bronze feather, and then a silver feather is you've published several articles over a period of time, and then gold is for a lifetime achievement, basically. And same with the crown. Then as bronze is like you're a teaching assistant maybe, and then you've taught for a fair bit of time, and then lifetime achievement. And in order for you to get the higher ranks, you need to have silver of these in the merits to qualify. And the other thing is that in order for you to go up to, you can become a journeyman within one weapon, but in order to become a provost, you need to have 3 combinations. So you could have like longsword, rapier, and dagger, which is 1 weapon in each hand, or you could have maybe mounted combat, or combat in armor, or wrestling. So and it's the same in the Sloan manuscript. They're sort of divided in unarmed, in weapon in 1 hand, weapon in 2 hands, weapons in both hands. But we're extending that to also include like mounted combat and what have you. So that's the outline. You can go into fencingguild.com and read more about it if you want, how the system works. Where was I going with this? That was a very long explanation. Do you want to say something? Say something smart, actually.
Oh, something smart. setting the bar at gold laurel. Well, I want to talk about why we're doing this at all, but maybe that's a little too early. Maybe you want to talk details more.
No, I think, okay. So the reason to go through it is it's a natural way of organizing your path in your fencing career, and one of the reasons for for doing it is to ensure quality, right?
Yeah, I was going to say there are two main components here. One is your own motivation and recognition for the effort you put in. And the second is maintaining knowledge over time. Like you need a structure for that. Because personally, I always enjoy the idea of guilds and structures and ceremonies and gold ribbons and all of that. But when it actually comes down to it, I'm much more of a guy with a bunch of friends in a gym goofing around. Like that is actually my baseline psychology. So I always approve of ideas like guilds and stuff, and it's only because I know that it's one of the few ways to maintain knowledge and quality over time. So even though I might prefer to just be very relaxed about what I do, I think it's necessary to have this, because it's not just about you, but it's about the art in 150 years, 250 years. And you need some sort of structure just to maintain what we've accumulated as knowledge over that time. And the second one is simple. I mean, you want recognition for what you've done. It feels really good if you have a really nice ceremony where you get the shining medal. And everyone does this to some extent. You know, like the basic mechanisms are the same. Remember when Casper was here this autumn?
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, we don't have a system. We don't have a merit system like that, but you get a badge and it feels great." You know, and it is the same thing. It's just comes down to how you exactly structure and organize it. But the basic human need for these things is quite obvious, I think.
Yeah, and you could just see that in, if you don't have a system for ranking, what becomes most important? Well, that's when you place in a tournament.
Yeah, somehow you're always going to come up with something else that shows your value or your quality, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad when people replace actual achievements, because we have it structured somehow, with just, I bought a patch.
Yeah.
And then they haven't actually done something that you know, you can easily tell, oh yeah, they've done these things and they have this knowledge, therefore they have that patch. So then it becomes a bit of a false show.
Yeah.
In that sense. And that's bad for you, man, if you're doing that. You feel much better if you can tell exactly what you've done to be rewarded with this thing that you're getting, right?
Exactly. And I mean, it's like Bullshido Masters is not an unknown concept in martial arts, and we're going to talk more about that when we get into the masters debate, I guess. But on what you're saying is that even though if you don't have a hierarchy in place, you will get hierarchies, but they'll just be informal. And by being informal and there's no formal way to get there, you're actually opening up for charlatans to just like socially engineer or socially hack the system and just act up like they're. And we saw that from the start in HEMA, these online warriors who were just oh man, yeah, they're great and all, but they can't fence for shit, but they're posting a lot about how you should be fencing.
Yeah, they should get a posting quantity merit badge or something like that. But it's interesting, Anders, because we used to be very much in the camp of shut up and fight in the early days, right? And we were very anarchistic about this whole thing. Yes. But then then the fight was, do you fight at all or not? Just post a video of your sparring. Yeah. That's still a merit badge. Yeah. That's still the same thing. It just wasn't very structured. And then over the years, once you see how happy people are when they get formal recognition and how it motivates them and how much easier it is to maintain quality and knowledge over time, we've kind of weared into the idea that maybe a ranking system and a guild system is a pretty good idea. People recoil at the idea because they're afraid of failing, not reaching over the bar. But that's also why the bar has value, because it motivates you to try to reach it. And it's a great sense of accomplishment, of course, when you actually do that. I think people also feel that it can be a bit stuffy, that being captured in a rigid structure hampers their creativity or enjoyment. Like, yeah, fair, if you do it in the wrong way, sure. We've all seen, hierarchies and structures that have solidified and are basically useless. But that's not what it's about. No, it's about creating something really living, and it's not and dynamic, right? That just shows you where to focus your energy, so that you don't disperse it all over the place with nothing to show for it. Yeah.
And that's one thing. And of course, it's also, when we're talking about quality, to be a stamp of approval or from someone who's recognized. And like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, if you're a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you usually have a pedigree going back to the Gracie family. And if you can go and buy a black belt if you want, like they're sold in stores online. You can just do that. And then some actual BJJ black belt guy will come and tap you out and call your bullshit. And one of the good things about that is that, at least from my experience, like the level of quality in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is really high. You can go to your local club and you can learn real good Jiu-Jitsu because you know who taught them and who taught those people and who taught those all the way back to the actual sources. And that's part of a really good way of handling a living tradition. Of course, there are, better or worse teachers, etc. I'm sure there is. I'm not that insightful about the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu scene, but it still seems a fair bit higher quality than what we're seeing in historical fencing. And we spent a lot of time trying to reach out and grow the community, but when someone then sees something that attracts them to HEMA, and then they show up in some shit club, and there's a guy there calling himself a master, and he's bad as a bad teacher and doesn't know how to fence and whatever. That's a problem. Yeah. No one's calling his bullshit.
It's absolutely true. It seems to me like the BJJ system is working really well. And of course, as you say, there will be exceptions there. I mean, using a generalization implies the exceptions by itself. So, I mean, it goes without saying. You always find rotten eggs no matter where you go.
Yeah.
But it seems to work really well because it's maintained and it's also preserved in actual skill.
Mm.
Helio Gracie was just really very much a badass. You can't get away from it, and he was able to transmit those skills to so many of the next generations.
Yeah.
So that's what it's a really good thing to aim at. Another thing that is worth mentioning is something I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but the recreation of an art, also means with the ranking, the recreation or the new foundation of a ranking system and of a guild. And that can also feel really artificial. I mean, there are plenty of examples of LARPing, and also all of us have fallen victim to that to some extent. When people try with good intentions to recreate something, it's easy to mock it if it's done in a embarrassing way. You know what I'm talking about, or if there's no quality behind it. Yeah. And then again, I point to BJJ. Like, why is it working? Because they had actual skills.
Yeah.
Just setting up a ranking system where you call yourself master this and provost that, and then you don't really fence well, or you don't really transmit skills well, and you don't behave well, then of course it's not going to work.
Yeah, and you don't have any students who do either. Like that's like what you said about Helio Gracie there, that that family, they just trained a lot of good wrestlers, and so that means that the system is working to some degree.
Yeah, like it goes without saying that the ranking system is pointless if there's no actual skills to transmit. Then you're really LARPing. But it also means that when you look at a ranking system, it's not like the bling is just an expression of the quality within it.
Yeah,
right. It's just a way of making that clearer. It's not that you get skills by wearing bling. Or calling yourself this or that. That's not how it works at all.
That's the whole debate about leadership in general as well. Yeah. Are you serving from above, or are you just trying to impose you're just trying to get the position in order to get all the
because you just want to boss people around in your little hall twice a week
because you're a loser in all aspects of society except in the hall. Yeah, I've got a black belt on, I
got a sash. No, it's definitely the case. And I mean, this is something that we've done so many times in fencing in general that, how to put this in a good way? I'll make a comparison. When we run Swordfish, we have ceremonies with the medals, and this idea that we had that now used everywhere that the judges wear shirts, and there was a little pomp and ceremony around the whole thing, and we were taking it very seriously. At least from my perspective, I acted like I took it really, really seriously because I wanted others to have that sensation, that feeling that this was serious, because that made them improve themselves, and it also made them feel something that they didn't get in normal life. This is something big. We're creating something big.
You're creating meaning.
Yeah, that's great. I'm creating meaning, and it to me was still like I just saw it as we were just a bunch of nerds in a gym, but I acted like this was something really serious and really meaningful because I wanted it to be so. And then because people took it seriously and found a lot of meaning in it, they improved themselves. And then I started feeling it the same way. But you had to fake it till you make it. And it's the same with a ranking system. Like if you want to put meaning into it, and you actually have the ability to put meaning, you have the ability to have gravitas, to be serious about it, and you have the skills, then you will create an environment that's real for the people who take part, and it will become real. And that's how you are able to recreate something without it just becoming an embarrassing LARP.
Yeah,
it has to be genuine. That's how we do it. Helio Gracie also had to create his new martial art with his new ranking system.
Yeah, and
a few generations later, no one doubts its legitimacy.
No.
But it's up to you to make sure that you create a real experience for the members of your ranking system, and the next generation, it's gonna be there.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be very real.
Yeah, there's that thing also with. When you're saying that you take things seriously, like there's that ties into the thing that we talked about, that people are scared of it, they feel it's stuck up, etc. But there's a difference between, you can have a good time, be relaxed, and have fun, and just hang out. That's one thing, and the other thing is when you're actually joking as an aspect of your own insecurity, or you're trying to not make things seriously because that's a defense mechanism for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've seen that a lot in fencing, because you have so many people coming from a background with no sports or no experience of adversity.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's this paradox of the more serious you are about something, the more relaxed you can be about it as well, right?
Yeah,
because you're comfortable.
Yeah,
so you know what you're doing.
You have to take things seriously if you want to be seen as seriously, and it's going to be very difficult for anyone on the outside of the historical fencing scene to look at HEMA and try to parse what the hell these jokers and nerds are doing. If they're joking about everything they do, they don't seem to take the things that they do seriously, and it's all about don't offend someone, don't have any hierarchies, and then they have this hero worship of that guy because he posted online, or he's got the same political views, or he's all of those aspects. It's just it will never be seen as serious from the outside. It'll just be, okay, these guys are a joke.
Yeah, this self decrepitude, is that how you say it? You're half British, you know the language. I don't.
When you're sort of shooting yourself down,
self-deprecating or infantilizing behavior. I think it's sad a lot of times because you're hampering yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get offended or think it's stupid. I think I'm just sad for your sake because you're putting a limit to your potential there.
Yeah.
You don't have to take yourself seriously, but you can take the art seriously.
Yeah.
To quote the great John Clements, I think it was actually him who said it.
Really?
I like that quote. It's something I thought about a lot. And when I say you don't have to take yourself seriously, I don't mean that you need to make a clown out of yourself.
Yeah.
But you can be relaxed. But you're going to find more enjoyment if you take the art pretty seriously. And of course, you can always goof off. I mean, that's a different thing.
Yeah. I mean, personally also, since I'm a little bit more stuck up than you are.
Yes.
I wear the same color socks. I'm looking at his socks right now. He's got different socks on his feet.
my grandma knits the best socks in the Scandinavian peninsula.
This is true.
I wear them at home every day.
Yeah, but you could maybe wear the same pair. That's what I'm saying. No, but I'm a bit more for me at least, I think it also has meaning to incorporate the old traditions for its own sake. I mean, if we're going to have a ranking, ceremony, and we have sources telling us how it was done, with, oaths being sworn and, putting your fingers on the sharp blade, and, swearing to uphold respect for the guild. And there's one aspect, his one oath is, you're swearing not to hurt the church or the king.
It's the French one, right?
Yeah.
Do not conduct highway robbery.
Yeah, exactly. Do not lie in waiting and attack innocent people to rob them of their possessions with these arts. That's setting a very low bar. So, but if there are these oaths, why not swear them? Because that also, from at least from my perspective, it gets you in touch with the older tradition which we're trying to recreate. It doesn't mean that you have to believe in God or that you were ever in the circumstance where you would be jumping out from a ditch to rob a passer-by on a road. But it's
if you do, at least don't use the art.
No, exactly. It's pretty hard to stop a car in the motorway with a sword anyway. But what if you try it, please film it at least, because I want to see it.
Pretty similar. Blur the face and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
No, Anders, I mean, I agree with you on that, because there's just a distinction between LARPing it and making it artificial and then making it genuine. And I think you should try to transmit as much of the past as possible, simply because knowing that it's from the past gives it meaning and weight in your mind, right?
Yeah.
And you might be implementing it and you might feel a bit awkward, but your third generation student, I mean, if you do it right, it will mean a lot for them.
Yeah.
And, if so, we lost the arts for a few hundred years, but in 2,000 years, that won't matter much.
Yeah.
So I absolutely agree with that. It comes down to how you're able to do it, and that's all about your inner maturity and how you think and feel about these things and how you act about them.
Yeah. I set up the first proto-ranking system in JHFS, which was we'd grown so much that we needed to divide the classes into a beginner's class and an advanced class in longsword. And I did a test, where you're showcasing a few techniques that you've actually learned curriculum, what the guards are called. You can perform the basic cuts, and you can reason about techniques. Those were the outlines of that test, really. And it was just based on a single thing, that we're testing what you've been taught, which is of course important. You can't test things that you didn't actually teach. That's one thing. And the other thing was that you're going up to the advanced class. There are certain skills that makes it easier for your participation, which is you understand the terminology so that you don't need extra explanations, and you can reason yourself and analyze fighting yourself, and you don't need to be held by the hand in order to do that. And so that was the thing, but it was also, I was joking about it, and I didn't want to make it too serious, and I realized that people took it super seriously.
Oh yeah. But it was a good combination, because we could joke about it when we weren't doing it.
Yeah.
But when we were testing people,
it
was pretty there was this feeling of importance.
Yeah.
And I saw that in so many students' faces when we were testing it, because it wasn't just practical. I mean, they had to answer questions and reason about things in front of a panel of their instructors.
Yeah.
And people really liked that, because, that's a memory for them that they can take with them.
Yeah. And I wasn't the first to be, because I was also tested. And although I was the head instructor, I felt that in order for this to be valid for me, I also have to test according to this system, just the same way that we've tested ourselves in the fencing guild.
Yeah, because I have to admit, on that first test, I never took it.
Oh,
I was
not qualified for the advanced.
I tested others, but because I came from another club to JHFS. You said, he's on the he can join the advanced club.
We did that as well. If sometimes I didn't make everyone take the test if they came in from a different club and they already were at a certain level, but I took it myself.
Absolute anarchy.
Absolute anarchy. And the funny thing about that is that when I took the test, I'd written the questions. I knew exactly what was coming. I was nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, I was nervous taking the test, and it's such a weird thing, but it also shows the importance of it, and that it matters. It matters. If you fail it actually matters. And we never took a student that we thought would fail it to do it.
No,
it was
I've only failed one guy over like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, me too. And he didn't know the names of the guards and couldn't stand in those guards, which I think he just blanked out, to be honest. But so that was like, okay, so you can do this test again, but I'm sorry, I can't pass you unless you actually answer the questions. You need to do that.
I think my student was just super hungover.
Oh, right.
He just couldn't really perform at all.
You punished them further for being disrespectful.
Well, he was. I mean, he really wanted it. He shouldn't have been hungover, but he was really upset, and he worked really hard, and he came back and he performed it. And I know that it meant a lot to him.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, there's something about this. Also speaks for the for why it like for why there are benefits to the rankings and the uniforms and the symbols, because it's the age-old human thing of putting on a mask and becoming someone else.
Yeah,
you see that in every culture going way back. You put on a mask, you turn into someone else, and that also allows you, if you want to have fun and laugh, after class or during class when you take a break, and like you don't have to be so serious and stuffy. But then when it's time to test someone and the instructor shows up with the symbols, he's putting on the mask of the instructor, and it allows him to be more serious and more stern with you than when the mask is off, so to speak. Yeah. And that also allows you to have a very special experience that you wouldn't have otherwise, because this instructor is now becoming someone else and is addressing you not as Axel, but as the potential candidate. Yeah. And that means that he will treat you in a different way, and your human experience get broader. Yeah, if you're with me there.
Yeah, again, you're creating meaning. Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're creating meaning.
Allow people to act in different ways.
Yeah,
sure.
So,
can I add something there?
Yes.
On the guild structure that we're talking about, because we've talked about the potential benefits of the guild structure, in that it's been tested in real life in other crafts. So there is something that works there. But that was quite a long time ago. And even though there are guild systems today, most guild systems made you train for like 5 years, 6 years until you got the next. I mean, it's not like we have 20 different colored belts here. We have like 3 grades, right?
Yeah, or 4, or depending on how you count them. Yeah, but
not that many people will stick around and live in the same town for 6 years, but that's still something that we've decided to include. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Okay. So it was actually quite funny in the Sloan manuscript if you look at it. Like a lot of people have incorporated those ranks in their system, by the way, but we're doing it slightly differently with the merit badges and all of that. But okay, so in the Sloan manuscript, they've both documented the rules for it, but also who took the different tests. And if you compare the requirements, which is you've trained for 6 years at this level before you can rank for the next level, etc., you can see that a lot of the people who are enlisted for the ranking, they didn't actually train for that long. They're not actually fulfilling their own rules. So they're giving people the ability to pass earlier than the regulations say. And that's the same thing that I did to you then, that I said, okay, so this guy doesn't need to take the test because I can speak to him about standing in Ox and performing a Zornhau without, having to. It's just formality for him to do the test. So we're giving the respect to him to say that he's at this level. But they did the same. Like they passed people in the testing, or had them do the tests before they actually fulfill the formal requirements. That was quite common. It's like almost more common than actually the opposite, I think.
Yeah, I think people's perception of the olden days, what honestly, really what old day you want to talk about before industrialization, is like afflicted by stuffy movies from the 50s and 60s where British actors play Romans and are really uptight. I blame you. I blame your island for that, Anders.
My island?
My island.
Is that up in Bohuslän?
that Britain.
Britain, okay.
The Britain place. I mean, most of the times the we are the stuffy ones, right? Compared to many of our ancestors throughout history.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely. So yeah, you need to take that into consideration when you think about ranking and all these things too. These were pretty wild guys.
Yeah, I mean, like the history of the fencing guilds is a history of of a lot of brawling and drunkenness and
sidestepping the rules.
Yeah, sidestepping. Like there's a direct connection between the factual and the public displays of fencing competitions and Shrovetide and carnival festivals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's I don't know if you seen that Bruegel painting the conflict between Lent and Carnival.
Oh
yeah. Like there's a woman just downing a huge what do you call it, pitcher of ale, and there's another woman who's in a barn. She's hung a swing up, and she's it's just fantastic. And there's sword dancing and stuff in that painting.
Yeah, I mean I've raised this example before, but stick fighting on Haiti today has more of the vibe from a fencing guild than our Excel sheet fencing sterile thing that we're doing today has. Yeah. It's very vibrant and it's very alive and it's very fascinating to watch. And they have a system in place. They have a guild structure, but it's very human because everyone understands the culture and the rules behind it and just allows them to be very free within the guild structure.
Yeah, because they had an organic fencing guild or a guild structure. What they didn't have was actually Excel.
Yeah. That's true.
They were really short on any data-driven points for ranking systems.
Yeah, it's funny that we complained that the tournaments and all the thing was not organized probably, so we super organized them, so we were able to run Swordfish being super organized, and now we sit here complaining about super organization.
Are you blaming us for this?
Yes.
Yes. That's point fingers.
I am in a sense.
So, or when you point at someone else, 3 fingers point back at you.
Guilty.
So, guilty. Yeah, and it's true. I mean, I think that maybe the reason why we're so interested in having these conversations, and we've been having these conversations, you and me, for 15 years, something like that.
Yeah.
It's because we've gone through them. Like we've lived them and done the organizations and thought about this stuff a lot. So I think that's these perspectives. Like for you guys out there listening, I mean, you should take that into account. Like a lot of the things when we're criticizing aspects of HEMA, we've been extremely involved in those aspects. It's not that we're criticizing everyone else and think that we're somehow sitting on a top of a mountain with some truths. We've changed our minds over and over and over again, and I'm sure that we will continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're discussing a topic, then you will look at it from all angles. Doesn't mean that everything is your absolute final say or opinion on something, right? You're picking a topic and you're looking at it and you're working through it, taking it apart.
Yeah.
And you're going to criticize it and praise it, but your opinion has to be flexible. Yeah.
And that's okay. So that's a nice segue into talking about masters.
Yes, let's talk, because that's also been an old historical. When historical, I mean like from 2005 debate.
Well, the conflicts between masters is age old. That's ancient. Like, he's not a real master.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So do you want to say something about that? What's the conflict here, and what are the sort of main points of the conflict?
Absolutely. Well, the master title is something that's within the fencing history. Naturally, everyone knows it. Yeah. Maestro, right? And that makes it very attractive to acquire for many people involved in fencing, because the archetype type to it is honestly amazing. Grumpy old guy teaching you a secret art, and wearing a cool uniform. Who doesn't want to be that guy? And it's the cliche, which I actually like, that archetype of the invincible fencing master, is also tied, to the Japanese sensei. Like the idea of master is someone who's basically invincible.
Yeah.
And the title is, of course, also used in modern fencing and in classical fencing. So there were HEMA-aligned organizations who had valid fencing master titles.
Yeah.
So there's always been a a desire for many to acquire that. But acquiring it then is difficult. One, because there are no formal ranking structures directly from HEMA except for those we create ourselves. And two, if you want that title because you want to convey the idea of the archetype, of the stereotype maybe, of the invincible fencer, then you're doing it for the wrong reason, because you're not that guy. And there were many occasions of people walking on talking about being masters, and they couldn't fence for beep, which tainted the whole idea. Right? Another thing, and this is, I think, my main grudge with the idea of master, is that we are recreating an art. Like, that lineage is broken. And yes, it survived in modern fencing, and yes, it survived maybe in stick fighting, classical. So everyone knows what I'm talking about. So instead of seeing that as a problem, though, I think you can turn that into a benefit by not using the fencing master title for historical fencing as a show of respect to the broken lineage and the masters who came before. And that just turns it into a strong symbol. Then you're imbuing it with meaning that, the master's chair is always empty. Yeah. And we are the best we can be to our ability, but let's always remember that these arts are recreated. And we aren't killing people with swords anymore. And it helps with always maintaining a relationship to the old masters and the old manuscripts, because right now we're in a situation where many people never touch a manuscript because their instructors are good enough to teach something viable on themselves. And then, of course, you run the risk also with increased sportification. Again, something that we are guilty of introducing in many ways. But there we go. That we get too far removed from the historical aspect.
Yeah, I think the imagery of the empty chair where the ancient masters is sitting, like, also done literally at you're having a ceremony, leave an empty chair for Lichtenauer to sit at, and you're not occupying that. It's a symbol of your humility as an instructor and in your ranking system, etc., like you're saying. But just to play the devil's advocate here for a bit, when does your own lineage emerge? Like, there's the counter argument to all of this is that, okay, so one, you're recreating the guild system. The masters were part of the guild system. The other thing is that you could just as easily say that it's sort of how do you say it? The opposite of humility. When you're saying, all right, we're recreating these arts, instead of just acknowledging that we're actually creating new lineages, and this lineage then has a head. It becomes there's a reason why you're doing this technique that way. It's because you were taught by this person, and it's a new lineage, and you can't say that it's actually the way that Lichtenauer taught it, because you don't know for sure.
No, and that is absolutely correct. We will never know for sure, and it will change. I mean, sure, longsword in 1400s is different from longsword in the 1500s, right? There's always a dynamism, whatever, to it. It's dynamic, Anders.
Yeah.
It's dynamic. No, it's true, and you are creating your lineage in that sense. If you want to focus on that somehow, then maybe you need a title for yourself then. And again, the first thing I mentioned was the stereotypical master as someone who is invincible. But master, as everyone knows, classical argument, it just means teacher.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be that important at all. That's the one side of it. It's just the guy who teaches.
Yeah.
But the second thing is then, but it's good with the myth of the fencing masters from the Middle Ages and Renaissance who actually fought for real and wrote the manuscripts. It's good if we pay them respect and give them an air of something higher, right?
Yeah.
Because it gives us a role model to strive for, and it gives some mythical aspects to what we do, which is really cool. It helps with the experience. So even if we know that they were not superheroes, some of them probably were, from our perspective. And it's nice if we treat them with that deference. But I can understand, of course, the argument that, new lineage, it's a good term to use because it has historical significance, and just to be crass, like it attracts students. They will be taught by a fencing master, Leonard.
Yeah.
And so on.
No, I think that the other sort of argument for the fencing master is that historically that it meant instructor and it had a purpose. It served a purpose to have the position is there, and you can change the name for it. It's still going to have that. You're still going to need that person in the room doing those things, teaching at that level, being recognized for those accomplishments. And that hasn't changed. That will never change. So you're calling that role something different. For why? It's just it's a sort of tip of the hat to the ancient masters.
It's a pretty big tip.
It's a pretty big tip of the hat. I agree. And I mean, like, you can make a distinction, like you could say, okay, so he's a fencing master, but those are the ancient fencing masters. Like, that's even above, but it just doesn't have the same. So okay. All my arguments feel to myself a little bit weak because I'm playing the devil's advocate here. I don't think that they're that strong, but that's the arguments that you could propose.
So we could completely twist it around to make it work and say the old masters and we are Art Nouveau.
Yes. I mean, there's an attraction to the master title, which also connects you to the historical sources. And if you feel that you can be worthy of that title, then, I have friends who are fencing masters who I respect, and I call them maestro, because I actually do respect them. There are those titles out there, and they've gained them through legitimate means, according to me. Maybe through sports fencing or classical fencing.
Oh, yeah, but that's a different thing.
It is a different
maestro
thing.
Of what?
Yeah.
You're a master of classical fencing and you deserve that title.
Yeah.
But you're not a master of sword and buckler.
No, and that's what I mean. Like, when does the sword and buckler then become its own lineage where you're a master of it? Do you understand?
It's a good question. I mean, one aspect of it is that these are not used for killing anymore, so maybe you have to go out in a post-apocalyptic
Speak for yourself.
world.
I'm ready. There are people out there.
Yeah, sure. That was Anders talking, not me.
Beep. Yeah, I'm joking.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I know that a lot of you have no sense of humor, but I was joking. I'm not going to kill anyone.
He's a master joker.
But if I kill someone, will you call me master?
Depends on how you do it. Well, there's another argument, that is the word master has also or very often had a significance of something more than just transmitting skill.
Yeah.
Isn't it Fiore who says, like, I've seen so and so many instructors, but very few I would call a master?
Yeah. This debate is actually as ancient as... Yeah.
Arguing about who is a master and claiming false mastery and so on is part of what we do, I suppose. We can't define it properly. You can't fit it into an Excel sheet. You just have to bitch and argue forever. Yeah,
and then we come to the obvious reason for why this is a hot topic. And that's because we both know that some of the people who call themselves masters in HEMA are shit fencers.
Yeah, there are some there maybe are masters in a way, depending on how you define it, and some who are only doing it for the narcissism.
Yeah.
Or just for financial gain, which is worse in a way.
Yeah. I mean, they're false masters by, like, I could beat them with a sword any day of the week with my right hand behind my back. But they're talking they're doing a big talk, and they're acting up, and they're describing themselves as masters.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we invented this system, and
some convoluted idea or transmitting skills from one art to the other or something. And then they also and that just makes them act in a way that shouldn't be how a master should act. Because one thing you didn't brought up that's in our guild structure is character.
Oh yeah, we have that as well as part of the testing.
Yeah. So if you start claiming mastership for stupid reasons, by default you're out of character, aren't you? Isn't it better that you do as the Japanese guy in the sensei video you sent me, where in Japan he said, a sensei never calls himself a sensei.
Yeah.
Only others call him a sensei.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's in character.
Yeah.
That's admirable.
Yeah, and he was embarrassed when
the Western guy was like, "Hey man, were you a sensei?" Or
yeah, like so the Western guy is a karate guy. I can't remember his name. Is it Karate Nerd? There are some channels. I think it might have been Karate Nerd. He interviewed a Japanese guy about the word sensei, and he asked him that a lot in the West, a lot of people call themselves sensei, and you could see the Japanese guy felt that was really cringy. He was almost, yeah, you never do that in Japan. Sensei is an honorary thing that you call other people. So it's fine for me to say Master Pedersen,
Yes, it is.
But you shouldn't go around and claiming that title for yourself. And that's exactly what these guys are doing in HEMA. And I know for a fact as well that a few of those guys have tried to get master titles in other arts and failed. We're like, all right, I failed there. What should I do? I think I'll invent my own system and then rank myself. Thank you.
True story.
Yeah, true story. And now, yes, I'm a master. So that's cringy. Apparently also cringy in Japan. So there's that. Yeah. So yeah, the whole master debate. I think there are good reasons for it, but it's such a wild beast that you can't really tame it. You can't really, because it would be abused. It's already being abused from day one. So I think that's one of the positive things about HEMA is that we've actually had that pretty much under check for 2 decades now. That we don't rank masters.
Yeah, I'm sure there are many local initiatives where they do. And if you do that, just try to be as good as you can. And I mean that in all aspects.
Yeah.
Don't be a fraud about it. Don't do it just for financial gain or to feed your ego. Like just do it in the right way.
Yeah, precisely. And you'll know if you've done it right if someone else, if me and Axel comes and call you master, then you're okay. So exactly. Like you might disagree with these arguments that we're presenting, and you might have master titles, and we might even think that you're really, really good fencers and good instructors, and maybe you're producing good students, etc. So maybe you do have a claim. We're looking at the bigger picture here, that at historical fencing, that is it a good idea? Because once you open that Pandora's box, you know that there's going to be other people who are doing it. It's
inevitable with any title that's attractive like that to signify certain skills and authority in a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right? I have a huge spiritual interest, right? The number of fake yogis in India is just through the roof. But it doesn't mean that they're not the real guys out there. It just means that you have to understand that things like this will always be abused, and you gotta watch out for them.
It's the pedigree of BJJ again. I mean, like, okay, so you're calling yourself a master under who?
Yeah, exactly. That's how you check it, right?
Yeah.
And like, what can you do? Like, so you're a yogi? Can you levitate?
Exactly. Like I've seen you live on this podcast levitating. But
fake yogi claims by Axel Peterson. 2021.
Yeah. During the pandemic year, Axel learned how to levitate.
I spent my time wisely.
Okay. So I don't know. Do we have something else that we should?
I feel like I'm wearing off in a completely strange direction. I think I should probably stop at this point.
Yeah. So some final words, though.
One thing. On the guild, this is something that we do as our thing. This is not tied immediately to GHFS, for example.
Yeah.
But this is something that's open for people.
Yeah.
Worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. We in the ranking system. You go in and check out fencingguild.com, and you can read up about our system. Feel free to email us at editor@historicalfencer.com if you want to talk about it, or check us out on our Facebook page. You're not on Facebook, Axel, so they'll be talking to me.
Oh, wait. Can they also just give us money through PayPal to buy a master title?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in purchasing a fake master title, we'll do that for the right amount of money.
You can pay to be tested, then we'll fail you 3 times just to milk you of all your cash, and then we'll pass you.
Yeah, and we'll send you is it a black belt? Or is it like a golden belt? That should be...
A golden belt, yeah, sure. That's
yeah,
good.
okay.
Cheaply made.
Yeah, I didn't go through that. You can read about the ranking, the symbols that we're using, and some of the ceremonies, some parts of the ceremonies at least, and stuff like that on fencingguild.com. Or have this conversation online with us on Facebook. The Historical Fencer has a Facebook group where you can check us out. All right, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this show, and let's not wait this far again before the next podcast.
Yeah, what are we talking about next time?
We had an idea.
Stupid anecdotes for 2 hours was the idea.
That's when Scott Hellroth comes
That's
here.
Scott Hellroth show. He's going to be in Gothenburg in March, I think.
Okay, so let's hope that we can hook up with Scott Hellroth, and you can hear all about the most outrageous rascals that ever walked the world of HEMA, and all the fun stories that go with it. Until then, take care, stay safe, fence well, and over and out from Master Pettersson and the humble Anders Linnard. Bye.
You are here on a matter of honor. I am here to assure you settle it honorably.
Junkritte Lehrer, Gottlieb haben, Frauen ja Herren, so explain.
I see you handle your weapon well.
I have been known to keep my tip up.
Why don't you make it up like a couple of good fellows?
Don't expect these
You ask for me tomorrow, and you shall find me a grave man.
You ready, gentlemen?